Well, a report yesterday that the economist Tabby Leoka was at one point on a long list of candidates to be considered for a position on the Monetary Policy Committee at the Reserve Bank. It was then realized, we understand, that she did not have the PhD she claimed to have, and thus she was removed from the list just this afternoon. A news statement from Anglo-American Platinum saying that she has now formally resigned from their board of directors. This all comes across after it emerged last week that Leoka does not have the doctorate she had previously claimed to have. She had also been a director at Netcare, MTN and Remgro. In her last public statement, she's claimed to be able to provide proof of the doctorate, but has not yet given any proof. Jennifer Barkhuizen is the head of marketing at the background accreditation agency Mettus. Good afternoon to you. How much qualification fraud are we seeing at the moment? Is there a big increase in this?
Good afternoon, Stephen. Yes, unfortunately, qualification fraud remains a problem, not only in South Africa, but in the rest of Africa and worldwide, especially now after the release of the matric results that was released last week Friday. There's been a surge as well of fake matric certificates being sold. And it's really a pandemic. And if you look at the situation, you get the learners that work so hard, you get people that put in all the work to obtain those degrees honestly. And, then you get the easy way out where people go and almost on a corner street, you can purchase a certificate. And companies really need to be wary about this, especially now with the matric results, new students entering universities, that these qualifications are checked and verified to be true and correct.
How can you check and verify them? I mean, you provide the service, but you need to get the information from somewhere as well.
Most definitely. So what we do is we go directly to the source. So if it is a Umalusi issued certificate, we go directly to Umalusi. We go to the source to make sure that that information is valid. And the reason we do that is you cannot take any document at face value. With the technology that we have today, it's quite easy to provide a false document. However, if you look at a specific student number or a specific a signature on a document, all of these things need to be looked at when a certificate is verified. And that's why it is very important that you go to the source to make sure the information that they provide back to you is then true and correct, that certificate does belong to the person who submitted it through for verification.
Jennifer, in the last few years, there's been a big increase in this. There's also been the introduction of the Protection of Personal Information Act. Has that had an impact on this? Does it make it harder for people to check with an institution if someone has the qualification they say they have?
Well, with the POPI Act that was implemented a couple of years ago, basically that states that any person needs to give consent for their credentials to be verified. And if you are going through the recruitment process and you are submitting your qualification or your ID number for verification, and if you are not providing consent for that, then there might be a red flag there. If you are going through the recruitment process and you know that it is a requirement for consent to be given to do these verifications, then provide your consent. The verifications will be done by the company or the organization the company is working with, and it will give you that information. However, if the high-profile cases coming up, like the Tabby Leoka case at the moment, if there's no consent, you can't start digging around in her past to see and access her personal information with regards to that. But it's very easy for her then to provide consent and say, here's my consent, you can investigate whether my qualification is valid or not.
So, I mean, that means that then, for example, someone can quite easily, if they're a company and this person's applying for a job, they can easily ask the person for that permission. Bit more difficult, I'm afraid, and I'm going to speak on behalf of journalists now. Bit harder for a journalist to phone a university and say, this person claims to have a qualification, they hold an important position, do they have it?
Most definitely, it does become harder to access this type of information. And if you look at the cases that's come to light, apart from the case that broke last week was this, the fake doctorate, there was a big issue a couple of years ago at one of the big universities in South Africa where they were selling certificates and providing these certificates to government officials. And that scandal, I would say, was run out of the university itself. So I think it is a fine line, but you have to also respect then the rights of the individual when it comes to providing consent to access personal information. So it is between a rock and a hard place when you do want to do your investigations. But if that person is not is not guilty, then there shouldn't be a problem in providing consent to access their information to verify whether that qualification or said qualification is valid or not.
I remember the case that you're referring to. I think you don't have to nod or shake your head, but I'm sure it was the University of Fort Hare, and several politicians were involved in that as well.
Unfortunately, so it's not just the thing about, here and there you hear a story and it blows your mind. It's actually, it's all over.
So this must do huge damage to companies. You employ someone to make really important decisions, to sit on your board, for goodness sake, to be your CEO. And you now have to go through, do all of this work to find out if they are who they say they are. And if you don't, you could appoint someone who really doesn't know what they're doing and cost you billions.
It could. And not only does it have a financial implication for your organization, it also have a reputational, it could harm your reputation. And as you rightly know, it takes years for a company to build their reputation. And a scandal like this, if you are associated with a scandal like this, it could tarnish your reputation in a couple of minutes. So it's really important for companies to do their due diligence, do your vetting beforehand. Make sure that the person you're looking to on board, are they who they say they are, and they have the qualifications and the skill to do the job. Because it will cost you more at the end of the day if you are employing somebody who is not qualified and don't have the necessary qualifications. And also thinking about it, if companies have the correct policies and procedures in place, they would ensure that it doesn't matter which position you are applying for within that organization, everybody is going through the same verification process. It makes sure that the company is mitigating their risk, their financial and their reputational risk, and everybody is vetted, and everybody should then know what to do. And what's also unfair about the situation is you get people that put in the work to obtain their PhD. Honestly, it takes them years. It's a lot of studying to get to that level. And somebody can come in, purchase a certificate online, and they can take that job out from under you, which is also unfair. So there's a lot of ways to look at this.
What I'm trying to grapple with is why there's been such an explosion in this. And I can think of several things. I mean, maybe our economy is in such a point that people are desperate and they'll do anything for a job. People I know, and we've all seen movies like this where someone gets caught up in the first lie and sort of stuck with it. And there are examples. Paolo Jordan's a good example. There are others. But it still seems that something has shifted. From what you say, it's probably unlikely to be the Poppy Act. What's changed in our society that's doing this?
I do agree with you. Unemployment, I do believe, plays a massive role in this because, yes, there's people they are unemployed. They might have been for a number of years, so they are desperate. If you are trying to find a position and you are simply not coming right, desperate times call for desperate measures, and in a moment of weakness, they might make the mistake of then trying to obtain a certificate from a degree mill or whatever the case might be. And then on the other hand, there's people that just don't want to put in the work, and it's very easy. If you think about today's technology and how easy it is by doing a search online to buy a certificate. And a lot of people say, yes, but I didn't know. And that's where you also as an individual have to take some responsibility for that. And you're not going to enroll for a course that looks like you can obtain your master's in doing a 6-month course. If it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true without any other qualification. So you as the individual also have to take that responsibility. Make sure that if you are enrolling for a course, it is accredited with the relevant bodies and the courses they're offering is accredited, because it is too easy. You can go do a simple Google search. You can drive the Johannesburg streets and probably walk in somewhere where you can buy a certificate with somebody else's student number on, but it will have your name and your ID number. So it's become too easy, and high employment does play a role. And unfortunately, technology is our friend and our foe sometimes when it comes to this. But then I come back to the important point I made earlier, is that don't take anything at face value when a document is provided to you. If you get a document, go through the correct channels to make sure that it is verified with the source of the source, whether it's the institution or the college or the university who issued that certificate. And then you can be assured that you've gone through the correct channels and that person actually has the qualification they say they have.
Jennifer, there's actually an act around qualifications, and as I understand the act, it says that if you are guilty of an offence, if you lie, you can be jailed for 5 years. But the SA Qualifications Authority also says that despite that law becoming law in 2019, no one's ever been convicted under it. So, I mean, it's nice to have a law, but it's clearly not doing anything.
Yes, I mean, again, with anything with the law, you are innocent until proven guilty. So, unfortunately, there is a few steps that needs to happen before somebody can just be jailed. But with this act that has been signed into, and this is again fighting the fight against fraudulent qualifications within South Africa. If you have found to have lied or produced a falsified documentation, that is fraud. The institution will open up a case against you, and you will go through the process. However, when you are found guilty of that crime, you can either pay a fine or you can face jail time. Now, in saying that, unfortunately, it's not a thing that will happen overnight, because a court has to find you guilty of the crime. But if you are found guilty, it's not like a couple of or many years ago where it's a slap on the wrist and we move on. This is a really serious crime, and if you do you do get jail time, you will sit with a criminal record for the rest of your life as well. So think twice about this, and I do think as time goes on, the Qualification Framework Act with that SAQA implemented recently will take off, and it's good that people know that you can no longer just take chances with this, because it's no longer a slap on the wrist. There is serious consequences for you as an individual.
Jennifer Barkhuizen, thank you. Head of Marketing at Mettus, the background screening organisation. Really do appreciate the time. Unfortunately, probably not the last conversation we're going to have around fake qualifications.